we have a son headed for. Oh, we're on. I'm not going to say. I'm not going to say where he is.
Well, when the video starts.
So we are the Clingamans. We are headed for the U.S. military in Guam. I was in for 6 years, and I meet veterans everywhere we go that were, and some were influenced by a servicemen center or a church that was dedicated to reaching the military. And we stepped out a few years ago, deputation, and if you notice on our banner in there, it'll say Japan, but it's crossed out. It has Guam, underneath there. And the Department of Defense is moving. We're going to go to Okinawa, where I was for 2 years, and establish a servicemen center there. And then it was finalized that they're moving all the Marines off of Okinawa, and 5,000 of those are going to Guam, so a brand new Marine base there. And so we changed our target. Our target people have not changed, just their location. So that's still working out. Our ministry will still be the same. It'll just be in Guam. We are going to set up a servicemen center. The servicemen center is there for the guys, mostly single guys they don't have their family with them. First, to keep them out of the bars. Alcoholism is a big deal, and it's been on. I mean, it was on the news yesterday. One of our Marines, he was in Russia, and he had an altercation, and that has blown up into politics, and I wouldn't be surprised if it just becomes a sore point for what's going on now with Russia. But he's in prison for 9 years in Russia for an altercation with the Russian police. So these are the guys that we're trying to reach. When I was in, just keeping them out of the bars was a chore. And we got to reach them with the gospel, give them some place to go on Friday night, Saturday night, instead of there. Come over to the Servicemen Center, we'll have Bible study, we'll have some other things to do besides getting into trouble. And our friend in North Carolina is doing a fantastic job, Jim Hart. He has his there, and the guys come over on Friday night, and he's had upwards of 70, 80 Marines and sailors in his servicemen center for Thanksgiving, for Bible studies on Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday afternoon. And the guys are learning their Bible. When I was in Okinawa, the missionary caught me. I had just gotten saved, and you'll see that in the video. And I just fell in love with the Word of God, and I have not gotten over it. And I infected my boys with it, and they are just. For the past few years, every day I wrestle with my son over doctrine. Not arguing, just wrestling with it. What does this mean? You know, what are the right questions we need to be asking? And he's on his way to embrace the harder doctrines and replace a lot of our theologians that have died just within the last few years. So that's very exciting, and he's going to be an evangelist. My other son is going to be a missionary to places I'm not going to say. And that's very exciting also. Now, see, we have a 6.5-minute video. Did you want to show that now?
Yeah, and we'll show it again later.
Oh, again later. Okay, very good. We'll do that now. And then think of any questions you have about the Servicemen Center. That's a different ministry than what you're used to seeing here in the civilian world. So that will. And we have our testimonies on there. October 23rd, 1983, I saw on the news the bombing of the Marine barracks in Beirut. 241 Marines were killed in that bombing. And that affected me. And it moved me to enlist in the Marine Corps. And I did it the next month. April of 1984. my coworker shared the gospel with me, explained it clearly, and I got saved. And so I went into the Marine Corps as a new believer, and of course it was difficult as a new believer, not having the foundation of a church. But when I arrived in Okinawa, a missionary there invested his time to show me the heart of Christ and show me the Savior that I had trusted a few years before, and it just changed my life. Learning what it meant to have the heart of Christ. Mark 10:45. To be a servant, a minister, and the 2 years I spent there was it really saved my life and made me want to serve more. I then went on, raised a family, and now halfway through my seminary, just a couple of years ago, the Armed Forces Baptist Missions came through and showed us what they were doing with the servicemen centers and churches outside the bases, and I just knew, after I stopped crying, I knew that that's where God wanted me and my family, and now we were going back to Okinawa, where my discipleship started.
I can say when I was in college, a roommate of mine explained to me about the gospel. It was eye-opening for me because growing up as a Protestant, you thought being good and just follow the rules and just not get involved in things that you're not supposed to, then you should be good. But because my roommate explained to me the gospel and asked me if I died today, where will I go? And no one asked me that question before, and then she went ahead and explained to me that I need to know the Lord and I need to get saved. And that moment, everything makes sense because I don't have a relationship with the Lord. And when she explained to me that I need to have a relationship with the Lord by believing on Him and that He died for my sins, and as simple as that, I will live with Him forever in heaven. And then after college, I moved back with my parents who lived in military base at that time. It was in Subic Bay in the Philippines. And I remember attending church services in the evening off base, and they have a serviceman center there. And the missionaries that runs the serviceman center are they're very passionate about the soldiers, and they provide a home away from home for the soldiers. They did everything for them like an extended family, and it was amazing. I loved the way they show how much they care for the soldiers, and by showing them the love of Jesus, either through the worship service or private counseling, or even just take them out for a picnic by the ocean. Witnessing that, it was just an encouragement in my heart that makes sense to me, and I can't wait to do that again. I want to be like what they did, to be a family, an extended family for the soldiers.
We are very excited to go. I didn't imagine this in the decades as I was raising my family and working as a professional, that the door would open and I would go back and be that missionary that influenced me so much, and just start sharing the gospel with the troops outside the base, and then looking for those like me that were already saved but just needed a little direction, a little encouragement, and then working with those guys and teaching them to evangelize and to learn their Bible, and to, like I did, learn the heart of Christ, that of a servant, Mark 10:45. And one contact leads to another, just like they did in the early church, making contacts and evangelizing and building new believers, getting them grounded.
For the past 5 years or so, I've enjoyed serving the Lord with Bruce Manette here at Southeast Baptist. He has been involved in ministries like Children's Church, and Children's Choir, and our nursing home ministry. Been going to Bible college during that time, preparing for full-time ministry. He has a military background, so his heart is toward the military. I think that it'll be interesting to watch the Lord use him in that particular arena. He seems to be well suited for it. I think any church would enjoy having Bruce represent them on the field, to the military in particular, where he's going to carry the gospel and start churches and really help our military personnel around the world.
Pete,
Okay,
I have a PowerPoint on you.
I'll break.
I completely forgot about it earlier. It has some pictures from Guam. That would
Do you want to do it now or you want to?
yeah, we'll just go ahead and hook that up. Get that started. Everywhere we go, we hear this. My son is in the Marines or Air Force. He's away from the Lord. Can you find him?
Mm.
And I'm thinking of that lady. She had like 8 kids, and the 2 older ones were in. One was in Marine Corps. The other one was in, I think, the Army. And because he was out in Colorado, where we have one of our missionaries are at. I just moved there, and it's just it is heartbreaking when the mothers come to you and say, you know, he grew up in church, he went to Christian school, you know, he's not going to church now, he's in the military, and the world has got him, and they want somebody to reach him because he's not willing to seek out a church, and I just there are a lot of men like that, men and women, that are called backslidden, if you will, and are not in church.
Guess he wants to see the pictures.
So that's the testimony that motivates me. And now when we get to Guam, now in the video, you have an older video. I saw it has Okinawa.
Oh.
I said Okinawa. It should have said Guam, but really the content's really the same. It will be my goal, my ministry, to meet every single serviceman on the island, and I'll have some of those guys. I'll have 6 months to find them. Some of them I'll have a year, and some will have 3 years. But I'm gonna. I have my interview here in just a couple weeks to get my status changed so that I can get complete access to the bases. I'll be able to go into the barracks. I'll be able to go into the PX and shop. We'll reduce our budget that way, shopping on the exchange, and go to the areas where they will be on base. So that's been a big deal for our ministry, is that door has opened, and that had just opened just last year. When we decided to go to Guam, we met Pastor Barnes, who started his church the year we stepped out for missions in 2017, and it has been providential in the past 12 months. So we met. We got a hold of Pastor Barnes. His church was the closest Baptist church to the Air Force base at the time. It'll be even closer to the new Marine base. And there's no Baptist work to the bases right now. Harvest is a big Baptist church on the island. They're farther south, and they have some guys that will drive in, but it's a bit of a drive, and a lot of guys don't have vehicles, and so it becomes a logistical issue for them, and they don't have a church where they can get to easily. We're going to land. The first thing we're going to do, Pastor Barnes says, first thing you got to do is get a van, a 15-passenger van, and start picking them up. Go to the barracks, pick them up, and get them to church on Sunday morning, Wednesday night. So they have chapel, and if you know anything about the military chapel, it is generic. And dry, so I've got a lot of heads, oh yeah, and it's a rare thing to find a chaplain that will get up and preach the gospel. And that's not their job to preach the gospel. Their job is to be counselors to all the soldiers, Marines, sailors, whether they're Muslim, atheist, Jewish, or anything, or other agnostic. They're there to counsel them, and not to push the gospel agenda. So they get in trouble if they get a little assertive with the gospel. So we have an advantage there where we can go in as a unpaid by the Department of Defense. Paycheck gives the payer leverage on what you can say. And so that's one reason why I didn't want to be a chaplain, was to avoid that power that the Department of Defense has over the chaplains. And we made it to Guam, and I gotta tell you, this past year has been, when that door opened for Guam, the next thing that happened was my dad got saved. My dad has been a fountain of evil in our family for 60 years. And so I just love telling the story. I love telling the story. So I'm getting a message ready for Jonah. So in Jonah, the Ninevites, their sin had reached, that's come up before me. The Lord says, that's like, their sin had reached heaven. It had gotten so bad, he had to do something about it. So he sent a preacher. And I was, studying Jonah, and wow, my dad would have been right at home in Nineveh. Those guys, just so wicked. And then my stepbrother called me and said, Bruce, you got to sit down. I said, oh no, Dad died. All right, I'm sitting down. He says, Dad got saved. I said, what? He said, I was watching him and I thought he was asleep in a chair, but he was actually praying for the guy on the TV. So he listened. He said, I listened to what they were preaching on the TV. And okay, Christ died for sins, raised from the dead, repent, believe on Christ, and you'll be saved. A simple gospel message. My stepbrother was real good about the clarity of the gospel. And he confirmed what he heard, and then he watched it, and his demeanor had changed. Said, Dad, did you mean what you prayed back there? He said, yeah, I meant it. And my dad's not one to say something because that's what you want to hear. He doesn't care what you want to hear. If you don't agree with him, you're an idiot. What's wrong with you? If you don't think just like I do, and he's not afraid to say it. But he says, yeah, believe in the Lord, and he's so crazy. So he says, okay, Dad, you don't have to. You're saved because you believe, but you should be baptized. So, and he says, he told on himself when he said this. He says, okay, but I want Bruce to do it. And I thought, it was just a couple weeks before that. He said, I didn't know you were going to church all the time. I didn't know you were in this mission thing. And I'm like, Dad, you've watched me go to church since I was 18. Every Sunday. I took my boys there. I took you there a couple of times. What are you talking about? But he was watching. That's right. He was watching. And I've tried to talk to him, and his sister-in-law, my aunt, his brother's wife, very strong Lutheran, and she would just, very, very strong-willed woman, and she just told him straight up how wicked he was, and he didn't care. She would say, "There's no talking to him." I said, "There's no talking to him," and my stepbrother said, "There's no talking to him." We all said the same thing, different occasions, and but I tell you what, the Holy Spirit knows how to talk
Amen.
to a heart that is in rebellion. I tell you what, my dad can get saved. Anybody can get saved. And that's in the Bible. The Ninevites, their sin had reached heaven. Now, there's other people in the Bible where their sin reached heaven. They didn't get saved. Sodom and Gomorrah, and the people in Noah's day. God he was bringing judgment. He gave him a preacher, gave him a witness, gave him time. And then, but the Ninevites, they repented. Anybody. And that was part of the message of Jonah is anybody can get saved. Salvation is of the Lord, not of the sinner, not of the preacher. So that was fantastic. That was just a fantastic time for us. We got him baptized quick because he was 84, and he's been through a surgery and some injuries since then. He keeps recovering, and he's just, we keep trying, I didn't mean to sound like that. I got ordained back in October. I got COVID in August and nearly died. So that oh my goodness, I nearly died. That is the closest I've ever came to dying. And then my wife, her mom died of cancer while I had COVID, and so that was heartbreaking. And then we left for Guam. And we just have a few slides. No grandchildren, so it'll be quick.
No, yeah.
Oh, that went. Okay, yeah. So I forgot I just added the video into the PowerPoint. So I think we can.
Click again.
There we go. Okay, here we're leaving for Guam. From Indianapolis, we're still in Indianapolis. She's worn out. She's like, and that scarf that she has on came from Turkey. My son brought back from Turkey just a month before. Let's see. Oh, we're again flying in. There's the wing of the plane, and it's still attached. So here's some. If you know your helicopters, that's a CH-53 Echo, and they're doing maneuvers. Now here's the dedication of the brand new Marine base, Camp Blaz, the first Guam Chamorro from Guam. His name was Blaz, and I think he made all the way up to general, and so they named the base after him. And really, there's no base. I'll show you pictures of the base, but there's not much of a base there yet. At the time they did this, there's the base, and this was a couple years, actually, fairly old. They're making big progress on the base. Oh, there's one. That's proof that we were there. It's a famous landmark there for the beach. My wife fits right in. She just thinks she lives there. Economic condition. That hotel is empty. It was right behind our hotel, one of the luxury hotels, and there were everywhere huge empty hotels. There's a few hotels that are doing okay because the military gives them $1 million a month to stay functioning without residents. And funny thing that the governor has a financial interest in those motels. So she knows how to leverage the military to her advantage. And here's Pastor Barnes, a Bethel Baptist. He's from Mississippi. He's experienced pastor, he planted a church in the Philippines while he's been there, and he's planning on planting another Filipino church in Guam. So he's very active. We will be a ministry of Bethel Baptist Church of Dededo. So we will be a ministry of a local church. That's very important if you've had any history with servicemen centers. My wife went to one while she was in Subic. It was not a ministry of the local church. They were just on their own. We don't do that. We say you will be a ministry of a local Baptist church. And there we are. Somebody put flowers in my head, and Thomas, the man who gave us the flower thingies, was the first man to join the Marine Corps from the island of Yap. So that's very cool. He's anxious to have us come over. That's Thomas's wife there on the right, and Conrad will be the pastor of Pastor Barnes' new Filipino church. And there I am preaching to. On the left is us preaching. That big guy in the front row there, Filipino. I started preaching, and he gets up and he comes forward. I mean, he's big as a sumo. And I'm thinking, well, that's kind of intimidating. But he wanted to make sure I was getting it right. And the kids there, a lot of kids from Yap. There's a big family of Yap there at the church. And the patriarch got saved, and it was just the rest of the family got saved. And there's a church baptistry. Isn't that awesome? You know, won't run out of water, and it's always warm. There's some servicemen that got saved there at the pastor's house, and yeah, just a few pictures there, and that's all I had for the slides. The Surgeon Center, the primary expenses is the facility. We have to rent a facility. The church that we have is not conducive for a Surgeon Center. Jim's home and our other friend Dennis, their home will be the Surgeon Center, because that's what a Surgeon Center is. It's kind of a home where they go to for meals and for fellowship, and so when you walk into the church, if you know the architecture on Guam, it's not very comfortable. You walk in, it's all concrete. You got chairs, be similar to this, but just this room, and it would be a tile floor, and everything is built with the idea of withstanding a hurricane. And so comfort and aesthetics are out the window. Practicality is king in designing these buildings. And so if they do get a new church building, it will be just an open area for chairs, people to sit. And then the Surfman Center, we need a kitchen, we need couches, we need a place for the ping pong table and things like that. So we need a different facility. If we do find a home that's big enough for a Surfman Center, that will be temporary. So that will get us through a couple of years while we save up money for a purchase. So in Guam, you don't buy land. You have to get a lease, because they don't sell their land. It's in the family. It's like a family heirloom, and you'll find that also in Hawaii and throughout the islands. But they will give you a 99-year lease, which the pastor is actually working on an empty piece of land down the road where he can build. It's like a military style of building. It's not concrete, but it is rated for hurricane. And in Guam, it's either you build with that kind of a building or with concrete, or you don't get insurance and you cannot get a permit to build. So they're very strict on their building codes, and concrete is very expensive to build with. And so the Lord is opening doors, and I called Pastor Barnes about it was about the time Dad got saved. And I said, I was calling around the other churches, and they said, no, we don't have an active ministry to the military. We don't go on the basis that they show up, we minister to them, and that's about it. Harvest, they have a couple guys that will go on to the Navy base and get them, but it's not like, they're not going to meet the need of the new Marine base and the Air Force base. I said, Pastor Barnes, I've been praying that I want to come over, start a Surfsman Center in Guam for the new base. And he said, oh, we've been praying that somebody would come over and start a Surfsman Center. When he started his church, while they were still part of his church back home, the missionary that he knew that was retiring, the last thing he said to him before he left the island was, we've been praying for a Surfsman Center on Guam. And that stuck with Pastor Barnes. He's a veteran, and then we called, and it was just like going home. Then we went to visit, and it was like being home. Down here, I feel like a stranger. I don't feel at home in Florida. I don't feel at home anymore in Indiana. And we've lived there for years. My boys were born there and everything, and I feel homesick for Guam, and just for that 10 days we were there. Confirmation, the Lord is moving. What time did we quit?
10:30ish.
10:30ish. Let's see, that translates to noon on Filipino time. Filipino time is much more flexible. Can you think of any questions about the Surfsman Center and our ministry reaching the military? Another big thing is suicide. With the military, the guys are, it is a big problem. We've had some PTSD counseling on how to find the guys and know what to do, and know how to recognize somebody who has the darkness, and get them help, and be there for them, and give them support. And I know what to do. Somebody has PTSD, I know what to say to them. I know what they need to do, where they need to go. And so it's not like slap them on the back, please cheer up, and here's some Bible verses. See you next week. We don't do that. We say, where are you going now? Let's hang out for a while. Let's track your every movement over this next week and get you connected. And I'm not going to let you out of my sight. I'm not going to let you out of my reach until you get through this. So that's a part of it. Having meals off the base, it sounds like a simple thing, but for somebody who's away from home, a single guy who's away from home, a lot of them for the first time, that means a lot. And I hear this as a testimony from veterans that say they gave us home-cooked meals. That's what they remember 20, 30 years, from there. And my wife is a great cook, and she loves to cook, and she just all the time on the cooking shows. And here, try this, try this, and we need some more. We need more testers and victims for her new recipes. But she does well, and I can also. So, but the goal is to get them saved and get them into the Bible, and onto a degree where it becomes a part of their life, not something they do here and there, like I have done myself.
Tell them the cost of the groceries.
Oh, like budgeting. I go through the list. See, like, what's your budget like in Guam? Which if you give somebody support, you kind of need to know that. If we buy a car, cars right now are about the same cost. Rent for the houses, they start at $2,200. So That's kind of shocking, isn't it? You know, and that's, and it's because of the land is very expensive. And so that'd be our primary expense is the property. Gas is $1 more a gallon. They're in, if you see 350, they're at, it's not, well, probably more than that, $1.25 more. It was $1.25 more. They were approaching $5 when we were there. And it's just gone up. On the base, it's the same price as it is here. I get to shop the base. So
That's a big plus that you were able to get in.
there.
And because they've really been cracking down on Christians in the military, trying to exclude them.
So my interview is March 1st, so that I got scheduled just yesterday. So I'm like, oh, it's good, the deal's coming through. And it's gonna change my status to disabled without benefits.
Yeah.
So
There you go.
all I know is it gives me access. I get to show it, I get to get on base. I'll probably be able to get a sticker and the whole deal. In the early days, Pastor Barnes, all he could do is get to the golf course when he got on base. He had to have somebody sign for him, and as a veteran, and just get to the base, and that's all he could do. And so he told me about that, check on that status, and which is one of the big things that came out of our meeting with Pastor Barnes. And let's see, the budget, the groceries, the price of milk is, we're not drinking milk. Sorry, they don't have gallons. You can only get it. I think they don't even have gallons. It was a half gallon, and it was specially processed. It lasts a long time.
They do have a gallon, it's $10.
It was $10 for a gallon.
There
I ain't
are no
doing
cows
that.
there?
So
They got a lot of chicken.
the so no cows. There's no cows on Guam. Everything, the supply chain drives the price of everything up. And the gasoline is not ridiculous because it's piped in an undersea pipe, and so that and not by ship. If it came by ship, it'd be $10 a gallon for gas. They have the same kinds of cars they have here. They're not Japanese cars.
But they do have your Mountain Dew, right?
They got my Mountain Dew. And I found the place to get it. Yes, sir.
Keep going.
Okay. So budgeting will be an issue. Kids are homeschooled. Caleb is actually graduating this year. And so he's going to go to Guam and be part of the ministry there. If I'm preaching, he'll probably play the piano. Right now, Pastor Barnes' daughter is playing the piano, and she's graduating from college this year, which means, you can imagine she's probably going to, she might move back to the States and they'll be without a piano player. If I get on base and they give me a place on the base to preach, then Caleb will play for me, and then they'll drive the van for us on days I'm not available. Thomas is there, waiting for us to get there. I need to get a picture of Thomas in there.
Which one, the one with the flowers?
Well, preferably not the one with the flowers. That's a little more flattering. He grew up on the island of Yap. It's one of those, what was it, Mike, is that chain, what's that chain called? Micronesia? Whatever that chain of islands is called. There's Yap, there's Chuk, and it's 1,500 miles east of Manila is Guam, and then Yap is just northwest, and that's a big, kind of interesting because Thomas was the first man from Yap to join the Marine Corps, and so that was interesting, and he's working there now, and I asked him where he moved from, because I thought he was going to say, well, we were on Yap and then I joined the Marine Corps. he said, we moved from Texas. So apparently they didn't like Texas, they moved to Guam. He gets saved under Pastor Barnes, and along with the rest of his family, the whole clan got saved. And the Yap are, they're not individualistic like we tend to be, like your immediate nuclear family. Their nuclear family extends out to sisters, brothers, nephews, nieces, and so they're all living together like that, and that's just normal for them. And so they have an interesting testimony. And the Marines,
flying to Guam, you have to go through Pearl Harbor, or to Honolulu, or?
if you can avoid it, Honolulu, Honolulu, that director he needs to be fired. It's just, it's so mismanaged. It's madness getting through Honolulu. We're gonna fly into Manila. Depending on the restrictions, if we can just fly through without having to go through the quarantine. We're vaccinated, so they may, and the way it works, if you got to finagle your tickets. You buy a ticket to Manila, then you buy a separate ticket from Manila to Guam, and that's $500 cheaper per ticket. So if you buy a ticket to Guam, it's $1,500. If you buy a ticket to Manila, it's $800, and then to get to Guam on another ticket is about $275. So times 4. That's a lot of savings. So we're not taking a lot of stuff, so we'll be able to take large shipping containers that will fit on the plane. So we're not taking a lot. They have a Home Depot there, so I'll be able to buy a lot of stuff there. Yes, ma'am.
What is the attitude towards the United States of America in general?
And they are citizens.
Right.
Chamorros are citizens. They have a lot of Filipinos there. Filipinos are, they like Americans. So you're thinking, like Americans? They love Americans. And they love money. So America's got it. So we have a good history with Guam. We don't have a good history with Okinawa. So Guam is, and the governor, she's Chamorro, and she loves her people, and she loves Guam, and she defends them tooth and nail, and she loves her tourists even more. There's 167,000 residents of Guam. They have 1 million tourists a year, and 900,000 of those are Japanese. So, and while we were there, we saw two? We saw 2 tourists. It was just a ghost town. But they're gonna, with all the talk about lifting restrictions, that'll be to our advantage, because they'll be able to allow tourists, and it'll be easier to the transportation really, and to get for the troops to get off of the base. In the early days of the restrictions, they couldn't leave the base at all, and you couldn't go on the base. It was really tight. But the governor, she's one. I anticipate that the governor, she's been around. She's going to prevent the Marines from getting into trouble any way she can. Because they wherever they go, it's like bars show up. Because those people know Marines love to drink, and they love to spend all their money on alcohol and other things. So they'll be anxious to open up, and the governor's going to say, no, you're not. You're not going to ruin my tourist business with your bars and drunk Marines. Marines are hard enough to deal with, sober, You get them drunk, and man, they get in prison in Russia for 9 years. And so it's not going to be like the old days where the Marines got into trouble all the time. I'm going to have a little bit of help with keeping them. Yes, ma'am.
When you talk about the post-traumatic stress disorder, do they come there from other tours, or does it happen there, or?
We still have a lot of combat vets from Iraq, especially with special forces, and some of that it's doesn't have to be combat. There's other causes for that, and once they come out of combat, they're just their condition does not affect their tour. Department of Defense, or the Navy, Marines, Air Force, they send them where they're needed, and they're everywhere. They're mixed in. They're not tracking them. They're just kind of out there, hoping they won't make the news. And they're still they're trying to do things to find them, for one. When you got PTSD, you get really good at hiding it until it's too late. So that's one of the skills that it's kind of weird. You ask them, like, why do you hide it? And they say, it was just natural. I wanted to hide this from everybody. So that's, one bright spot is there's a lot more public attention and professional attention on the disorder. And they have renamed it. It's now called PTSI, post-traumatic stress injury. Now the stigma of a disorder is removed from the label. And I thought that was, we kind of brush off labels, but that was really a big deal for the guys who said, okay, so now I don't have a disorder, now I have an injury. I'm not so embarrassed to tell somebody. And it is more descriptive. It is more of an injury than a disorder. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
What are the main struggles you have when you're presenting the gospel to the military? Will you say that they'll say something like, "Oh, I don't need religion," or?
It is, really, it's the same thing you would hear anywhere. These guys came from, they're your friends, they're your neighbors, and they grew up here with the other religions that don't preach the gospel, whether they're Methodist, even Southern Baptists. We run into Southern Baptists that were not saved, and trying to get them saved. So they have the same. Oh, I got my religion. I don't need it. I'm gonna storm into heaven because I'm a Marine. I'm gonna. Okay, no, you're not. And really, especially with the Marines, they're instilled with a sense of pride and resilience that is not seen in the other branches, and it keeps them from thinking about the spiritual things. And we're out of time. And to all the arguments you get here, it's to a greater degree. And getting it, like anywhere, just breaking the ice and getting them to hold still long enough to think about this. Think about what I'm saying. There's more to you than your body. You know that. Let's talk about your eternity.
All right, brother. Thank you. That's very enlightening. And we're going to give a couple minutes. What happened to the cards? Cards, are they making their way? For those of you just arriving, we have cards for our active service members out there, so we want to reach out to them and thank them for their service and let them know we're here. Let's 10:45 re-adjourn, and we'll hear a challenge from Brother Bruce. You're dismissed. You want me to switch out a video?
The video